Thank you.
Good evening, folks. Thank you so much for joining us for our kickoff session of the Tuition Break College Opportunity and Exploration platform. My name is Jonathan Gowan. I'm the director of the Tuition Break program for the New England Board of Higher Education. Now, whether you are here tonight live with us in October of 2022, or you're watching this recording at some point in the future, I'm really glad that you're here to engage with us. So today for our kickoff session, we have Dr. Tim Poynton. He is of UMass Boston and is also a co-author of the book College UnMazed, which is a book designed to really help students and families thoughtfully and intentionally navigate the college search and financial aid process. So today he's going to share with us some insights from him and his team from the College UnMazed book. And so I will be turning it over to him here in just a moment. So if you're here with us tonight, you no doubt found us through our college or our co-op, the College Opportunity and Exploration platform. So if you haven't noticed already, this platform is something like a college fair, but a little bit different. So instead of a single one-time event, this platform is designed to be an evergreen virtual environment that you can access at your leisure. We're loading this with content, much like today's session. And over the course of the next few months, you will see that this gradually grows and grows and grows and fills with useful content about college and college admission and financial aid and all of these various things that will help you as a student, or perhaps you as a parent or family member, really go through this college search process. So really glad you're here tonight. Really glad you're able to take advantage of the platform. If you have any questions at all, we are in the Zoom webinar platform, so please feel free to utilize the Q&A feature to ask any question of Dr. Poynton as he goes through his presentation. And once he is complete, we will do a bit of a moderated Q&A before we wrap up tonight and wrap up the recording. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Poynton for him to get us started. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Happy to be here. Certainly appreciate what the New England Board of Higher Education is looking to do and accomplish with this new college opportunity exploration platform. Sorry if I got the name wrong, but it's a great idea. Happy to support it in some small way here tonight. But tonight, what we're going to be talking about is trying to help you deepen your understanding of college fit. It's based a lot on some of the ideas that my colleagues here and I have been working on really for the better part of 2 years. I've been doing research in college counseling and college and career readiness with Dr. Rich LePan, who's from UMass Amherst, for over 10 years or so now. We've been doing research in this area. And kind of long story short, I could talk a good bit more about that research, but really what motivated our research was trying to find and identify things that we could do while students are still in high school that could help them succeed in making it through to college graduation. Because the fact is, and I won't get too far into the stats here, but the fact is that far too many people who start college don't finish. I think that the national overall graduation rates hover somewhere around 54 or 58% is the 4-year graduation rate. That jumps up to 64 or so percent. Don't quote me exactly on those numbers, but if you go up to a 6-year graduation rate, it's about 64% or so. So Rich and I in our research have been trying to identify what are the things that lead to success and failure in the transition from high school to and through college. And one of the things that we kind of honed in on was this notion of college knowledge. That led, again, long story short, to our connection with Dr. Amanda Stirk. Dr. Stirk is the director of the dual enrollment programs for Florida Southwestern University. That's a community college, actually, in Fort Myers, Florida, which, as you know, was devastated by Hurricane Ian. So she is trying to put her life back together a little bit after that. She's doing well and she's healthy, but her work there is critically important in her perspective. Really, working in a community college is also really helpful and valuable to us. She's also got experience as a school counselor and a consultant for students and families going through the college search process. So that's our team here. We've been working again for about the past 2 years on this book called College UnMazed. The College UnMazed book essentially works through 9 chapters The first half of the book that I'm not talking so much about here tonight begins with the 4 factors, as we call them. So it's the you factor, your likes, your dislikes, your personality, your preferences, those kinds of things. And the academic factor, what are the things that you can do while you're in high school to really bolster your academics? Pursuing rigorous classes, taking the most rigorous classes available, and trying to explore your interests, your academic interests a little bit while you're still in high school before you get to college. That's the short version of the academic factor. The career factor is really focused in on trying to help you identify specific career pathways that will be meaningful and satisfying to you. Kind of traditional career development activities in some ways, so to speak. And then the last piece, which is critically important, is the money factor. That's how do you pay for college? What do you need to know to pay for college? So these first 4 factors in the first half of the book essentially are focused on building your self and college knowledge. And it's on that foundation of self and college knowledge that you can then engage in this informed decision-making process using a strategy that we call LEADS. And the LEAD strategy involves building a list, as you can see here on the graphic. Once you develop an initial list of colleges to explore, you then explore those colleges a little bit more deeply. Once you've explored the college a little bit more deeply, it's usually a narrowing process for folks. They narrow their list down a little bit further to colleges that they're really considering applying to, which is the next stage. It's the A in the LEAD strategy. In the apply stage, you're trying to figure out which colleges are essentially worth the time and money for you to apply to. How do they fit you well? And then once you've decided which colleges to apply to, you apply to those colleges, and then you decide which college to attend. So, sorry, my printer is going. Awkward. Sorry about that. So the next step is once you've received your acceptance letters from the colleges, you decide which college to apply to from those that you were accepted to. And then after that, you succeed in the transition from high school to college. And that's a specific part that maybe we don't do such a great job helping students pursue in high school. It's basically, what are you going to do over the summer to increase your chances of success in getting from high school into college, right? So that's the LEAD strategy in a nutshell, which is going to be the focus of what we talk about tonight. Here's what we call a mind map that describes the self and college knowledge in some ways that that we think are critically important for students to have to really engage in a meaningful and informed college choice process. And then we also have the LEAD strategy here, which I just described previously. It's developing a list, exploring your list, applying to colleges. This is what I'm going to talk about in detail here tonight. In just a few minutes, it's going to be the focus of what we talk about. And here is a quick mind map of all of the things that, or most of the things, I think anyway, that we believe are related to the LEAD strategy and critically important for succeeding in making an informed college decision. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about what is fit. This is a figure. If you look at this figure at first glance, some of you probably see 2 faces looking at each other, right? And some of you, the 2 faces looking at each other are in the white space. You might also see a black ornate vase. If you look at the black, that's what you see is kind of an ornate vase there. What we're trying to do with College Fit in particular is help you see the whole picture so that you don't just see the white faces, or you just don't see the black face. Because if you know what to look for, you can actually see both of them if you figure out what to pay attention to. And that's what we're trying to do with the 6 keys of College Fit, which is what we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. By attending to the 6 keys of College Fit, it really helps students and families make a truly informed decision to figure out which colleges fit them best. This figure, just a little bit of background on this. This is from Gestalt psychology. This is called the figure ground phenomena, or figure ground perception phenomena. And it refers to the tendency that our brain has to make sense of all of the things that we're seeing in the world. Our brain essentially takes shortcuts to make sense of all of the stimuli that it's being confronted with. So what we need to do is when we're researching colleges and we're figuring out what colleges we might want to apply to, we're going to make sure that we use the 6 keys of College Fit to make sure that we see the whole picture. All right. All right, so here is the 6 keys of college fit. What I'll say is that usually most students and families in their college going process do a pretty good job of attending to 3 of the 6 keys of college fit. Usually people, students, families are doing a good job of paying attention to the academic match. What are my chances of admission? How well does the college fit me academically? Things like that. Also doing a pretty good job, typically most students and families of attending to the personal match side of college fit. That's things like what type of institution is it? How far is it from home? Does it have dorms that I could see myself living in? Does it have a nice feel? Those kinds of things. Those are all things that are going to fall under the personal match key. How much does it cost to attend the college? What's the sticker price? How much gift aid am I getting? What's the net price? And if I need to borrow money, how much money might that translate into? It's certainly a critically important part. What we're going to encourage you to do through the lead strategy is also include information about the other 3 keys that are, I don't want to say nobody ever pays attention to them, but they tend to be less well attended to. Things like career match. So this is really looking at what kinds of career services are provided on the campus to help you succeed, not only in college, but in life after college, in terms of finding a job that's meaningful and satisfying for you, and financially rewarding as well. Do they have internship programs that are robust? So for example, a good example of a college that has a unique career perspective is Northeastern, that has their co-op program. That's like a feature of Northeastern, right? So if internships are important to you, Northeastern might actually be a really good place to look at, because they have a strong, robust co-op program where students are essentially required to participate in an internship before graduation, a year-long internship, mind you. So lots of colleges have internship opportunities, but they do vary from place to place. So learning a little bit more about that is something we encourage through learning more about a college, the colleges that you're considering, by explicitly paying attention to the career match key. Another one is student support. So this is what kinds of supports are available on campus, and this requires kind of knowing what supports you might benefit from. So lots of colleges have academic supports on campus, like a tutoring center or a writing center or things like that. Most colleges are also going to have a counseling center available to you, but they differ in how you access those. Counseling centers, for example, is there a certain number of free sessions that you get as a student, or is counseling provided whenever you might need it, right? So if you feel like you could benefit from counseling services on a college campus, investigating a little bit more about that support is helpful. For students and families that have a 504 or IEP as part of their high school program, an IEP being an individualized education plan, so somebody who's receiving some special education services. The parallel in higher education is run through disability services, but it's actually very different in college in that you need to, as a student and family, advocate for that for yourself. And one of the things that varies tremendously from college to college actually is the percent of students that are registered with that disability services office. Some examples that I've seen. For example, I believe it's Northeastern has less than 3 or 4% of their students are formally registered with the Disability Services Office on campus. And on the other hand, Brown University in Rhode Island has 25% of all of the students, all of the undergraduate students on campus registered with disability services. So 1 in 4 students at Brown is receiving support from the Disability Services Office, whereas on the other hand, less than 4 out of 100 at Northeastern. Don't quote me exactly on the Northeastern numbers. I haven't looked it up recently, but the point is there are some colleges where there are very few students that are getting supported by the Disability Services Office, and there are other colleges where a relatively large number are. So if you feel like you could benefit from those kinds of supports, it's worth looking into that. How many students are supported there, and how do you access those services, right? So the student support key is another critically important one that sometimes students and families don't attend as well too as the other 3 keys that I mentioned earlier. The last one that we'll talk about are the student outcomes. So these are things like a graduation rate or retention rate. alumni salary is a piece of information that you can get. We might want to temper that a little bit, and the loan default rate. So I'll talk about each of these for just a second. So the graduation rate is usually reported there's usually reported 4- and 6-year graduation rates. Now, I don't know about you, but most students I know of that start college full-time plan on finishing within 4 years. I don't know of anybody who starts college starts college as a full-time student who says I have a 6-year plan, right? So attending to the graduation rate and looking for the variability in those colleges that you're interested in. It can be a useful and telling statistic. And for any of these metrics related to the student outcomes that I'm talking about, I would never say that you should not, I would never say that you should avoid applying to a college that has a lower graduation rate or a lower retention rate, but you should ask questions about that. So with the graduation rate in particular, graduation rates are typically based on data that is probably at least 6 years old, if not 7 or 8 years old, depending on whether or not you're looking at the 4-year graduation rate or the 6-year graduation rate. The college may be doing something different now to address that problem, to help improve student success with on-time graduation. So it's worth asking an admissions counselor about to see if they've done anything different recently. The retention rate is another one. The retention rate, just for clarity, the retention rate refers to the percent of freshmen that started out, full-time, first-time freshmen that started at college that returned as sophomores. I refer to this as the freshman satisfaction score of a college because it describes how many freshmen were supported and satisfied enough with their experience that they returned as sophomores. So I think that's a telling statistic. And you'll find that it can vary tremendously from, I won't say tremendously, but it varies from college to college. And if you're looking at a list of colleges where you have one college that has a 65% retention rate and another one that has a 90% retention rate, that should lead to some questions for you. Like, why is it that students are not staying at that college past their first year? What is it? Generally speaking, private schools tend to do a little bit better on these metrics than public schools, and overall across public and private schools, the more selective the college is, the better their student outcomes tend to be. Just really quickly to talk about the alumni salary. Alumni salary is very heavily influenced by the major that a student selects. So if you look at a school that's a STEM-oriented school, you're going to see, generally speaking, the STEM employees are in demand. They tend to command higher salaries upon graduation. So the alumni salary at STEM-oriented colleges is going to be higher than at more traditional liberal arts colleges. So keep that in mind as you're reviewing alumni salary for colleges, is that it's going to be influenced heavily by the major that the student selected. Then the last one that we'll talk about here in student outcomes is the loan default rate. The loan default rate, I like to think of it as a measure of the financial health of a college's graduates because it describes how many students, what percent of the students that graduated, I forget the exact number, 3 or 6 or perhaps 10 years ago, but the number of students who are in repayment on their student loans, how many of them are in default? In other words, they've stopped repaying their student loans like they're supposed to. And you find some variability in this. Again, I wouldn't say that you shouldn't apply to a college that on your list that has the highest loan default rate, but it should raise some questions for you to ask of people who work at the college. Okay, so the idea here behind all of this is to go into the college choice and selection process with your eyes wide open, being aware of what the challenges and the promises are for each of the colleges that you're considering. Right, so that's the 6 keys of college fit. It's a lot of information to consider. So what we've done with the lead strategy is that we've broken down which pieces of the 6 keys of college fit to pay attention to at each step of the process so that you're not overwhelmed with all of the information that's out there. All right. All right. So the first step in the lead strategy is developing an initial list of colleges to explore. It's the list step. We pay attention to 3 keys here in the list phase. So we're going to pay particular attention to the personal match, the career match, and the academic match keys, looking at these aspects of it. So does it fit me in terms of how close it is to home? Is it an urban, suburban, or rural kind of area? If those things even matter to you. Does it have sports teams? Is that going to be something that you'd like to have as part of your college experience? Division I or Division III, or varsity sports teams, perhaps more intramural sports teams, religious affiliation of the college. Things like that are going to be things that you're initially going to want to pay attention to. Um, looking so if you're looking and you've got less than 10 colleges, think about if there might be ways to expand some of your criteria to add a few more colleges to consider. And if you've got more than 10 to 15 or so, you might want to think about being a little bit more strict with some of your criteria. What we're trying to do here is make sure that we develop an initial list of colleges to explore that has a good range of options, but you're not missing any good options and you're not getting overwhelmed by the sheer number of colleges. All right, so again, the number 10 to 15, not wedded to it, but people often like to have a general ballpark number to think about. So that's the number that we recommend. It's going to depend in some ways on where you live. Here in New England, we've actually got lots of colleges pretty nearby. We've got 91 in Massachusetts alone, for example, 91 four-year colleges. California has 233. It's a big state, as is Texas, where there's 129. Wyoming, on the other hand, has 3 four-year colleges. So if you live in Wyoming and you want to stay within the state of Wyoming, it's going to be hard to have 10 to 15 colleges on your list because there's only 3 there, right? So, so your mileage may vary with these numbers, and they're just general ballpark figures. What matters is whether or not you're kind of satisfied with the number of colleges and that you're not missing any good options at this point. That's the main thing. All right, so so that's what we're doing here with the initial list phase. We're going to make sure it matches us with some of the personal match characteristics. We're going to make sure it has majors and programs that we're interested in perhaps studying. And we're going to want to make sure that the academic environment suits us in terms of public or private, 2-year or 4-year college. Do they give credit for APs or CLEP exams or credit for life experience, things like that? Do they have online learning opportunities? Things like that are what we're paying attention to here, just to make sure that it meets our general criteria. The tool that we recommend that folks use to do this is the College Navigator. The College Navigator is a tool sponsored by your tax dollars. It's through the National Center for Education Statistics. It's freely available to everybody here in the United States and abroad. Actually, anybody can use this tool. It has a lot of the same information in it as you know, the College Board tool, the Big Future tool. It's got Naviance is very similar. MIFA Pathways is another one that's very similar to this. So you can use whatever tool you like, but we just like the College Navigator because we know everybody has access to the College Navigator. Not every school subscribes to Naviance, so that's why we're recommending the College Navigator, because it is also a relatively unbiased source of information. They don't have another angle, if you will, with this. They're just providing the information because they gather it for us with your tax dollars. So they make it available through this tool called the College Navigator, which you can find at collegenavigator.gov. So you can begin to filter your initial list of colleges using those criteria that we talked about. Right here, you can see it over here on the left-hand side. You know, is it a public or private school? How far is it from home? Under the program's majors here, you can browse for programs and select the particular majors that you want the college to have. All right, so you'll do this and you'll come up with an initial list of colleges. Sometimes you might need to, again, expand your list, and sometimes you might need to contract the list if there's too many colleges listed, but it's a good starting point. So what's not included here? So we're not looking at this point in the list phase at cost or your chances of admission. The reason we're not looking at cost at this phase is because there's no good way to estimate the actual cost of attending colleges. What's provided here in the College Navigator, as you can see here, is the tuition and fees. I like to call that the sticker price of the college. There are many private colleges in particular where literally nobody pays the sticker price. So if you filter out colleges that have a tuition that's higher than $30,000, for example, for tuition and fees, you might miss out on some really good options because they give lots of money in scholarship money. So they might be affordable for you, but you might not know it yet. So you'll learn about that a little bit later in the process, but at this point, we don't want you to rule out what could be a really good college for you that is affordable, because the sticker price is too high for you. We're going to learn more about that here in just a little bit. We'll help you develop some tools and techniques for for assessing that relatively quickly. But at this point in the initial list stage, we're not really looking at cost, and we're not looking at the chances of admission. We're going to look at that in the next stage for sure. But at this point, we're just trying to see what kinds of colleges match us initially. And then we can rule out colleges a little bit later in the next couple of stages if we find out that they don't fit us in other ways. All right, so that's the list phase. The next phase is the explore phase. So what we're doing in the explore phase is we're going to look at all 6 keys of college fit here. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into that data. The primary objective here at this point is to get to somewhere around 8 to 12 colleges that you explore a good bit more deeply by doing some more research, visiting them perhaps, and doing more research online to gather data and facts about them. In addition to doing, we highly recommend people actually visit the campus if that's possible. So here's what we're looking at in terms of the first 3 keys, the academic match, career match, and personal match keys that we looked at initially with the list phase. We're going to gather some more information to them here, gather some more information to supplement them. With academic match, we're again going to look at what are the ACT and SAT scores and the GPA of typically admitted students to see how we compare to those typically admitted students. How many students are admitted? That's the selectivity. What's the student to faculty ratio, which is a little bit of a benchmark for determining class size, and then program size and availability. How robust are the programs there? If you're considering a major, at one college, and there's 150 students in that major, let's say psychology, for example, at one college you're considering, and then another college, they've only got 6 people that graduated with a degree in psychology. Those are going to be kind of different experiences in terms of electives and things like that are available. So we're going to have you investigate that here in the explore phase. We're going to also have you dig a little bit deeper into the career key, the career match key, and looking at trying to get a sense of what's the alumni network. Are there opportunities for career-oriented mentoring, internships, and career placements? And then the personal match key. You can investigate diversity and whatever diversity might be important to you, be that racial, ethnic diversity, gender diversity, etc. What type of institution is it? What are the living arrangements like? Just to refine your personal match a little bit with each of the colleges on your initial list. And then we're going to also consider these 3 keys as well, the remaining 3 of the 6 keys of college fit. We're going to look at the financial match key to understand the sticker price and net price, and how much debt people typically have. There's going to be specific data that we collect and analyze related to that. We're going to look at the student supports that are available in relation to the ones that we feel like we could benefit from on the college that we choose to attend. And then we're going to also look at the student outcome data that I described earlier. All right. So that's the explore phase. Again, what we're trying to do is get to this list of somewhere around 8 to 12 or so colleges so that we can then move into the apply phase. Something we're doing here when we're exploring to help us get a better sense of how we can estimate our chance of admission is we can use something called the Common Data Set. The Common Data Set Initiative is what it's called, and basically for colleges that participate in this Common Data Set Initiative, not every college does, but for those that do, it provides you some insight that's difficult to get in other ways. So, for example, in the Common Data Set for this college, this example college, in section C7 of this Common Data Set report, it describes what factors, academic and non-academic factors, the college uses when they make admissions decisions. So at this college, they consider the academic factors. They consider our rigor of secondary school record. That's essentially, are you taking challenging classes like AP and honors classes? They're looking at your GPA, and they're looking at standardized test scores. So those things were all very important at this college. For the non-academic factors, they're considering extracurricular activities and your talent and ability, and volunteer work experience, but they're also considering level of applicant interest. Level of applicant interest, also known as demonstrated interest, is a factor that the colleges use that this college uses when making an admissions decision. For those of you that don't know what level of applicant interest is or demonstrated interest is, it's doing things like going on a college tour, following a college on social media. When they send you an email message, or you clicking on the links in their email messages is how some colleges actually track demonstrated interest. And at this college in particular, we learned from the common data set that demonstrating interest is just as important as the class rank, which is an academic factor. So if you're applying to this college and you don't know that demonstrated interest is a factor that they use when they make admissions decisions, you could be disadvantaged. Where I've seen students get into some trouble with this and perhaps not get into a college that they really wanted to gain admission to. For example, I know of somebody who was applying to a college like this, where they consider demonstrated interest, but because their sister went to the college and they visited their sister regularly, they had visited the campus several times and they knew about it, so they didn't sign up for the formal college tour with an admissions counselor and a student-led tour and that kind of thing. So when the student applied to this college, they didn't get accepted, even though their academic qualifications were kind of above and beyond what's typically expected of students that attend this college. So I didn't talk with an admissions counselor there, but my sense is probably that because the applicant did not demonstrate interest, they probably thought that the student wasn't very serious about applying there, and that the college was probably viewed as their safety school. So they decided, instead of giving them an offer of admission, they decided to save that offer of admission for a student that seemed to be more interested. So pay attention to level of applicant interest if you can. Just some other quick things on the common data set. Not every college, as I noted, not every college participates in the common data set initiative. Generally speaking, more selective colleges and public colleges tend to be the ones, public four-year colleges tend to be the ones that participate in the common data set initiative. How do you know if a college participates in the Common Data Set Initiative? The easiest way to do it is to do a Google search or to search the college's website for the terms Common Data Set. So if you go to the college's website and use the search tool to search for Common Data Set, if they participate, you'll be brought to a page on the website that's very clearly labeled Common Data Set. Same thing with Google. If you just do a Google search for Common Data Set and then the college's name, you'll be brought to a page that shares the common data set information. And you'll find it's broken up into sections A through I, or J, I believe it is. Section C7, as is noted here, is where you can find this information, which provides you with critically helpful insight to help you gauge your chances of admission and figure out what you need to do to make the most compelling application possible. All right, so that's the common data set, critically important to know. So here we have so another piece of information you can get from the College Navigator is they report scholarship information, financial aid oriented information. This is in the financial aid section of the College Navigator. What we see here is that at this college, the sticker price for tuition is $58,180. The room and board cost is $14,670. Right, so this, in the financial aid section, what you can hone in on here is to see what % of students receive aid at this college. So at this college, every single first-time, full-time freshman, so 457 in this case, 100% of them received a scholarship, and the average amount of that scholarship was $39,000. That comes out to a 70% discount on the tuition. 70%. So again, this is why we don't rule out colleges from our initial list based on sticker price, because this college might actually be affordable. It's $40,000 less than the sticker price says, right? And that's a 70% discount. It's a 54% discount on tuition and room and board. Okay, so you can find this in the College Navigator for every school. This is one of those colleges, tends to be moderately selective private colleges that give a lot of money in scholarships like this. You may have heard in the news recently, if you're from Massachusetts anyway, I know I heard this on the local news, at LaSalle University, they have made a change in how they do that. LaSalle, as we'll see in 1 second, was one of those colleges where every single freshman received a substantial discount on their tuition. So to paraphrase and summarize this letter here that they published on September 20th, so less than a month ago, they note here on the bottom that research conducted by Sallie Mae, 60% of high school students won't even consider a college or university that meets their criteria if the published sticker price is beyond their means, right? So LaSalle is actually making a move to be more transparent in their transition and their tuition. And their pricing, and they're reducing their sticker price from $59,000 to $39,000, which is a 33% reduction. from the current published tuition rate that they have. So they're doing this to be much more transparent about what you'll actually pay at their college. Instead of hiding it in a discount that you don't really learn what it is until you get the award letter from them, they're being more transparent up front. So I applaud them for this. I looked up in the College Navigator this information. So this is the information for 2020, 2021, which is the most recent available information for them. And again, as I noted earlier, so this is a college where 100% of the students at LaSalle received about a $22,500 tuition discount. So every student got on average $22,000 discount on their tuition. That's a 38% actually, a 38% discount on tuition, room and board. So if you're cynical, you might look at this and say, well, geez, they used to give 38%. Now they're just reducing it by 33%. What are they doing with that other 5%? And I would bet, time will tell, but I would bet that LaSalle is probably going to, I would hope, use that extra 5% in a more need-based manner to give lower income students and families a little bit more of a break on tuition than higher income families. But time will tell. We'll be able to tell that here shortly. How can you tell that? You can tell that because also included in the College Navigator in the net price section is they actually do a breakdown of what is the net price for students by income level. So this over here on the left-hand side is the income level. The net price is, again, it factors in scholarships, it factors in Pell Grants. It just says, what is the actual net price that students and families paid to attend this college? And it does it for the last 3 years. So here you can see that lower income families pay $21,000, $22,000, and higher income families who make $110,000 or more are paying closer to $31,000. So that makes some sense, right? That if a family makes more money, they are going to be spending more on tuition than students who are from families who are less able to afford the price of college. All right, so this information is publicly available. Not every college reports the net price by income. All of them will report the average net price at least, but not all of them report the net price by income. So just be, if you're looking for that information, don't expect it to be everywhere. Okay. All right. So here is what we've done. This is a lot of information you got to gather and look at, right? How do you make sense of all this stuff? So as we were developing the book and trying to figure out how we can help students and families with this process, we actually developed a tool that we call the College Data Organizer. This is a picture of it here. You can download this for free from collegeunmazed.com/downloads. This is what the College Data Organizer looks like. It's an Excel sheet. It's also available as a Google Sheet that you can copy. If you're in a school that uses Google, or if you don't have Excel at home, but it gives you the steps to use it right here. I'm not going to read through them. But what it does and how it helps you in this process with gathering the information is it allows you to, for up to 12 colleges, pull in the information by just choosing the name of it. So I talked about Brown University earlier, so type in the exact university name. I don't have to scroll through the whole list, but we've got for about 3,700 colleges there are in the list here, which is most colleges in the United States. Some for-profit colleges or colleges that don't submit data to the federal government for whatever reason are not included, but this includes the vast majority of four-year colleges. And what it does is it pulls in all this information related to the 6 keys, all the information that's available, and it pulls it in. So you can see here, for example, at Stonehill College. Stonehill College is test optional, so it's not reporting the SAT scores. Test blind, perhaps, but they're not reporting SAT scores here because they don't consider them. So they don't provide that information. But for colleges that do consider it, like SUNY Albany here, my alma mater, and Brown University, it is providing that information. It also provides information here on the student outcomes. What's the retention rate? You can see here for the colleges here, it ranges from a low of 83% at SUNY Albany to a high of 92% at Brown University. It's also got information here, all that information that I showed you in the College Navigator. It's also provided here in the College Data Organizer. So it gives you easy access to that information. As you can see here, SUNY Albany does not report the net price by income. They just report the average net price. So it's absent here. But you can see here the percent of students receiving institutional aid at Stonehill, for example, is every student, 100%. And the average amount of scholarship aid, or discount as I like to call it, that is provided is $25,586. So again, you can get this information using other tools, but at least in my experience, it's been a little bit challenging to compare it side by side for all of the colleges. So this tool just does that, and the benefit of using the College Data Organizer with the lead strategy is that it actually puts the data in the places that you need it for each of the 6 keys. All right. It's also got some helpful information down here about what are the application requirements. Do they have an open admissions policy? This common data set that I talked about earlier, it's got a place where for the colleges that you've selected, you can note here if the college participates, and then just make some notes by entering the data essentially from the common data set here, so that you can compare that later. So it's got that nice feature, and then once you put in all that information, particularly related to the 6 keys and some particular student outcomes, it actually graphs that information for you, so that if you're more of a visually oriented kind of person, you can see the data visually as opposed to just the numbers, which can be a little bit overwhelming for some folks. All right. We've also got this, again, only 2 colleges on the list use the SAT scores, but it plots the middle 50% here. So so you get some return on the investment, if you will, for filling in the data on the College Data Organizer. Again, this is available for free download, collegeunmazed.com/downloads. Feel free to go ahead and grab that at your leisure. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is, so now we've explored the colleges, we've got it down to 8 to 12 or so. So now what we're going to do in the apply phase is figure out what are the 5 to 8 or so colleges that are worth our time and money to submit applications to. And the way we're going to do that is by, again, we're going to revisit the 6 keys of college fit, and now we're going to look at that information, and we're going to see how well each college fits us. And we're going to use this 1 to 5 rating scale so that you can rate each college on each of the 6 keys on how well it fits you. All right, so this is a table that you can do that here. You can do that in the College Data Organizer. You can print out this table or make this table for yourself and do it. But basically, it provides you with a way to judge how acceptable the college is to you. In other words, how is it a college that you could see yourself succeeding in on each of the 6 keys? What are its strengths? What are its challenges? So that's the main task that you're doing here in the apply phase, to see how well the college fits you, and then you're going to develop a competitive application. So my colleagues and I don't like using the safety target reach language so much, because the safety target reach language we feel like is disempowering. That puts all the power, if you will, in the hands of the college. Constructing your list of colleges to apply to based on your chances of admission leaves out half of the equation, in our opinion, which is the fit side of things. So just like I was showing you here, this is you determining how acceptable each college is to you. And here, with chance of admission, that's the college deciding how acceptable you are to them. So this is a 2-way street. And if you use safety target reach as a way to organize your list, you're making it a 1-way street that really works in the college's favor. So so we recommend that you look at both chance of admission and overall fit, and you can plot the colleges in one of these 9 boxes here to see how well they fit you, along with what your chances of admission are. And then you can use that information to try and identify the colleges that are high fit colleges, moderate or high fit colleges that you have a moderate or high chance of gaining acceptance to. It's not to say that you won't have some low chance of admission colleges on your list, perhaps the old reach schools, if you will, but you're going to want to have all of your colleges in at least a few of these boxes. If all of your colleges are only in 1 or 2 of these boxes, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for you. All right, so that's the apply phase. Again, the other thing of the apply phase that I'm not talking about very much here, but as a part of the book, if you're interested in that, is how do you develop a compelling application in terms of the essay, in terms of getting strong recommendation letters and things like that. That's another part of the what we talk about that's critically important, but not something that I'm talking about tonight. So the next phase of the lead strategy is to decide which of the colleges that you've been accepted to. So now you've got your decisions in hand, so to speak. Now you need to decide which of the colleges you were accepted to, which one you're going to attend. And the way we recommend folks do that is by now bringing in this notion of what we call desirability. It's the emotional side of informed decision making. So here, instead of rating how well each college fits you, now you're going to say how much do I like each college, essentially? How desirable is each college to me? So in addition to the 6 keys, we're going to revisit that stuff, but then as we'll see on the next slide, instead of looking at chance of admission, because we're now only really considering those colleges where we've been admitted to, we're going to rate the desirability alongside the overall fit. So we're going to look at how well does the college fit us, and how much do I like the college? Some of those intangible things. How do you feel about the college? Are there things that don't fit into the 6 keys that are important to you? Things like that are going to be ways to bring in some of the emotions and feelings that you have as part of this process. You're going to be able to include them in the decision-making process at this point when you're choosing which college to attend. Right. And over here on the left, this is, for those of you that are education-oriented, this is Bloom's taxonomy, the lead strategy and the process that we encourage folks to pursue in their college choice process is really a higher order thinking strategy. And it's a strategy that you can use in other parts of your life as well. We've just adapted it here to the college choice process. So the last step of the lead strategy, so now you've chosen which college to attend. Now the next step is to celebrate a little bit, congratulate yourself, and then develop some plans so that you can succeed in the transition from high school into college. And the plans that we're looking for you to make in your college success plan are you're going to want to plan to integrate into college financially. That's knowing things like, if you receive scholarships, how do you maintain eligibility for those scholarships for all 4 years, for example? That's critically important, right? If you've got a $40,000 scholarship, what do you need to do to keep that scholarship? It's important. Sometimes there's a GPA requirement, sometimes there's a community service requirement, but you're going to want to find out what that is. How are you going to pay for college? Not just for the first year, but for all 4 years. Okay, is the college affordable? If you don't already know that already, you're going to want to definitely plan that out more tangibly here at this point. Academic integration. So what do you need to do to succeed in your academics? How does advising work? How can you access your advisor? If you're an undecided student, which is totally okay, I think that going to college with an undecided major, unless you're super certain of what your major is totally okay. But then how do you get advising, right? So you're going to want to figure that out. You're going to want to figure out, how do you register for your classes? When do you register for your classes? Is it going to be beneficial for you to sign up for one of the early orientations as opposed to one of the later ones, or are all of the classes going to be filled up, perhaps, or classes that you want going to be filled up? So just figuring out how do you get access to the classes that you want, and how do you get access to the advising that you need to succeed in your first year and beyond. And then the social integration gets at the living arrangements, the on-campus activities, to social life. Your social life is an important part of your college experience, so don't take it for granted. So with that concludes the presentation. Whoops, my name is a little bit long there. Sorry about that. So if you have any questions, you can email me at info@collegeunmazed.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify at College UnMazed. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any questions, please do let us know.
Thank you so much, Tim. Really appreciate your time this evening and the information that you provided. I just will say, just for myself here, before I jump into questions, really appreciate the framework that you and your co-authors have created here, and want to second Tim's encouragement to follow College UnMazed on social media. They've got a lot of really great, helpful content that goes beyond even what's been presented here tonight. So really want to echo that for all the folks watching. There are some questions that I want to ask. There's a few that I have. And so just a couple here before we wrap up and finish the recording. The first has to do with, I want to return to the conversation about the career factor, and for students who, as they're beginning to really think about that as part of their college search. And my question is, The question is, for those students who maybe are less sure, maybe they're really overwhelmed, they're not sure at all, like, where do I start? What might I want to do when it comes to a career? What are the things that you recommend that a student should do? Where should they look? How should they go about beginning to answer that question of those questions about career if they're really unsure about the direction that they want to take?
Yeah, yep. And I think that that's totally normal. When I do presentations, sometimes I often ask a room full of adults, sometimes people who have been in their careers for many years. I say, how many people here are doing a job today that they envisioned for themselves 20 years ago, or when they started college? And very few people raise their hands. So change is normal. So if you don't know what you want to major in at this point, there's still time to explore. That's totally fine. But I would encourage you to start with your high school counselor or your somebody at your high school to help you, to see if they have any assessments available to you that might help you gauge some of your interests. And what I encourage you to do is to, instead of trying to think about a specific major, like, do I want to be a psychology major, or do I want to be a biology major, or do I want to be a math major, or what have you, to try to think about career pathways. So if you're interested in psychology, you might also be interested in sociology, anthropology, or one of the other social sciences. If you're interested in engineering, you might be interested in some of the other more harder sciences. And there's different kinds of engineering, right? There's mechanical engineering, there's computer engineering, there's electrical engineering, right? And they're all actually a little bit different. So just trying to get a sense of, are you science oriented? Are you kind of liberal arts oriented? Are you social science oriented? And then with that information, just getting a sense of reflecting on your own experience in your high school classes. Which classes did you enjoy, and which ones did you not enjoy as much? To try to put them on your schedule early in your freshman year and in your freshman year, or maybe in your sophomore year, so that you can get some more concrete information and have some more experiences that can help you make that decision. Yeah, I think that that's a good start. The other thing to keep in mind is that about 1/3 of college students who declare a major, so they formally declare a major, 1/3, literally 1 in 3 students change their major. So changing majors is common. The earlier that you can figure out kind of what you're interested in, the better, because sometimes if you change your major in your junior year or in your senior year, that may delay. That's one of the reasons why people don't graduate on time, is because then they don't have the prerequisites to take the advanced classes that they need to graduate on time. So the sooner you know, the better. But talk with your high school counselor, and as soon as you get on that college campus, if you're still not sure, meet with the Career Center, because they talk with people like that every day and know how to help them explore majors on that college campus.
That's excellent, and can definitely second the comment related to changing of majors. Even myself on my own college journey, I changed my major not once, but several times actually before I finally found my home. So
and I call that career exploration. That's normal. I think that's normal. The problem is that it's not so normal in colleges, and it can delay people's graduation. So
absolutely. So the next question is actually, I want to touch on something that you were getting to really towards the end of the conversation. You made a really great comment in saying that that social life, your social life, is really a major part of your college experience. It's absolutely true. And so for those students who are really community oriented and really want to get a sense of what a campus feels like, or what kind of a student community feels like at a particular college or university, I'm wondering what would you recommend for students who really want to get a good sense of that? What are the strategies that they can take to really get a bead on understanding what's that social feel community element of a college campus?
Yeah, so it can be hard, I'll say that, but there are some colleges that offer fly-in programs, or where you can spend a night there with somebody, stay in the dorms, and you can get a sense of what the life is outside of classes that way. There are some online forums. College Confidential would be one. Niche, I believe, is another one, where you can get some insight into that. I would just caution any kind of online reviews of places. You tend to get polar, the extremes. You get people who are really satisfied with their experience, or people who are really dissatisfied with their experience. You don't hear from a lot of people in the middle who had a satisfying enough experience, but it wasn't stellar or it wasn't terrible. So with any online reviews of anything really. That's just something to keep in mind. But you could also try to, if appropriate and you feel comfortable doing it, to just go visit the campus informally. So instead of signing up for the tour and doing the admissions, the meeting with the admissions counselor and the student-led tour, just go kind of hang out on and around campus a little bit to see what it's like. I'll say that for me personally, this is an area that I struggle with a little bit because I didn't start college till I was 24, so I never lived on campus actually. So I was a commuter student always, and but connecting with student organizations was something that was really important to me early on because that's where I started to develop some of those social connections. But you can see what kinds of clubs are available related to that. Are there clubs that you're interested in joining as part of your success planning in the succeed step? You could also be on the lookout for those clubs and student-run organizations as a way to kind of connect with like-minded people.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And our last question here before we wrap up is actually, it's a question directly from me, really related to the work that I do related to tuition break. Very much on our minds every day is this aspect of, or this issue, I should say, of college affordability. And within the College UnMazed framework, you really beautifully captured how financial aid and cost and affordability should be a factor in the decision making. And I really have to say I'm impressed at the depth to which it is included, because it is, of course, a critical factor, especially with costs as they are. And so my question is really, and if you could direct this to parents in particular, I find I'm oftentimes, most of the folks I'm talking to are parents. And so for those who may be especially overwhelmed or concerned about where college costs are and approaching the financial aid process as something that is not very transparent, as you very rightfully said, what advice might you have for those students or for those parents, I should say, when they're beginning to start this process? They're overwhelmed with the numbers that they're seeing. What do you recommend? What steps do you recommend they take just to begin to take it one bite at a time?
Yeah, so I would say kind of starting off with some of the tools and resources that we talk about in there as some thumbnails. Something I didn't say, but it's critically important, is before you apply to college, you should go through the net price calculator on every college website, because that will give you a much more personalized estimate of what you can expect to pay, given your family income, any merit scholarships you might qualify for. So definitely go through the net price calculator on each college website. And then from there, the other thing I would say, something I didn't say here, is colleges. Let me preface what I'm about to say by saying college is too expensive. There are other countries in the world that do a better job of making college affordable, frankly, than we do here in the United States. So it is. I do wish it was cheaper. That said, it tends to be a really good investment for most students and families. In that. In the research that I've seen most recently, and I've looked at this a few different times, is that over the lifetime, people with a bachelor's degree earn somewhere around $1 million more across their lifetime than people without a bachelor's degree who have a high school diploma. So that I've seen a number range from $880,000 or so to $1.2 million. But generally speaking, I don't know. I'm not a financial planner, but if I could invest, let's say $100,000 in a college education and have that return $900,000 on that $100,000 investments, that seems like a good investment to me. I don't know. The other thing that's a little bit less tangible, but in addition to people with bachelor's degrees getting jobs that command a higher salary, you also have more choice in the work that you do. One of the arguments that I sometimes hear with this is, oh, you can go to community college. For example, one of the politicians last year was saying, just you could be a welder, and everybody should be a welder. Well, maybe everybody wouldn't be happy being a welder. Like, not everybody likes the lifestyle that a welder leads. It can be dangerous work. They work on bridges upside down, like melting hot metal. Like that is challenging work. And maybe not everybody is well suited to being a welder or a mechanic, which is another. Again, those are jobs that require training after high school, which I think is critically important. But they also, I guess, inherently kind of limit your options. Whereas with a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree, some of the outcomes that come from that that employers value are things like, setting short-term goals to achieve longer-term goals. Like those are kind of things that happen as part of the college experience that prepare you for success in the workplace in lots of different jobs instead of just one particular job. So again, I know people who are electricians and plumbers and are successful and happy in their work, and that's great. And if you are sitting here and you're thinking you could be successful and happy in that work, then by all means, please pursue that. But if you're thinking that college is the right path for you, and I think it is for a lot of people, then know that generally speaking, it does offer a good return on one's investment, almost regardless of which major you choose. As I said earlier, there is some variability from major to major, but so I don't know if that's comforting to parents or not, but that's the reality, is that your children have a better chance of financial health in their future if they have a college degree than if they don't. I think that's just the facts. Now, that doesn't mean that every student who doesn't attend college is destined to be financially unhealthy or to be, living in poverty or something like that. That's not true either. But I think if you attend college, what the research says is that you stack the deck in your favor, essentially. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful or that exactly answers the question, but.
Well, I think that's well said. That is, I think you dropped a few, important nuggets of wisdom in there, especially when it comes to the research on outcomes and long-term return on investment. There's a lot of great research out there. I know, especially that's been done by Georgetown, that certainly that reaffirms the value of the college degree. And so I think that's a wonderful, I think that's absolutely a great place to end it, especially in a day and age where, folks are, as they begin the process, they're asking themselves, is this worth it? Is this worthwhile? Is this a good investment for my future? I think a great place to end it is a strong affirmation that yes, it is. It is worth it. And the research says that it's worth it, especially if you're able to go in, as you very eloquently stated earlier, eyes wide open, fully informed about who you are, what you want, and what you're looking to get out of this process. So at that point, that is the end of our questioning. But I do want to say another major thank you on behalf of NEBI to you, Dr. Poynton, for your time this evening. And a thank you to all of those watching now and in the future. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jonathan. Much appreciated.